Going live, it says. I don't know if we're actually, there we go. All right, welcome folks. We are going to talk about digital economies in emerging markets. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves. We've got a great panel. I'm Philip Silva. Sasha, can you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sasha. I'm one of the co-founders of API3, and I mostly work on development. Yeah, that's a short introduction.
Awesome. All right. She also does a lot of research and data science. So thank you for putting the receipts. Sandeep.
Yeah, I am one of the co-founders at Polygon. Previously, it was called Matic Network. So we are a multi-chain, Ethereum layer 2 scaling solution. So yeah, and I take care of the business side of things. My other two co-founders are more focused on the tech side.
We are super glad that you're going to fix scaling for us because while gas isn't all that bad this moment, it's really bad this week. So
yeah, it is.
And Fabian.
Hi, yeah. I'm Fabian Vogelsteller, and I'm a co-founder at Luxor. Luxor is a blockchain network for the new credit economies, and previously I have worked at the Ethereum Foundation. I have been responsible for things like ERC20 and the first Web3 browser, and I built Web3.js, the most used JavaScript library in the developer space, and yeah, influenced a lot of the developer and some of the user experience things that we have in the space today. Yeah, and focusing on now on Luxor, a separate blockchain. So it's also a blockchain that's built on the ETH 2.0 stack. So it's not using the ETH 2.0 network, but it also uses Casper plus EVM execution. Right? So I'm Ethereum, that's what we are doing. But it's a core new economy, and I think it's very fitting to the topic we have today and to the panel we are speaking about. Because new economies are emerging, that I can see very strongly in, for example, this new digital lifestyle space. And one of the things we have seen through COVID is that everybody's now digital. We're having a digital conference right now. So everything is moving towards digital.
I think, Fabian, you are not that clear, and there is some noise behind you.
Yeah, I hear some noise as well. Is it me? No, I'm muted. It's not. Is it me? No.
It's yeah.
Oh, is it me?
It's like a fan on or something in the room.
Oh, I think it's just my laptop.
Okay.
Is it really loud?
Not super loud. And Fabian, like your audio sort of comes in and out a little bit. I don't know if there's something you can do about that, but
okay.
But you can be closer to the microphone or something.
I have a MacBook, so it should work fine, but maybe the internet is not as stable. I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm also doing this over Safari, so maybe that's a...
At the moment, you sound fine. But yeah, if you can just lean in a little bit, that'd be great. So in the green room, Sasha, you were suggesting maybe a good place to start is recent events, and I think that's good. We talk a lot about decentralization in the blockchain space, and those of us in it think about that, talk about it, or try to build it. The rest of the world is suddenly waking up now to the need for that. You gave the examples of GameStop and the deplatformization that's going on. Want to talk a little bit about that and how you see that changing things in the future?
Yeah, so I think we all work in the blockchain space, although I don't think this panel is specific to blockchain, but that's just my realm. So that's kind of where my thought process went. But I was just commenting, in the green room that like 3 years ago when people were talking about blockchain and decentralization, it was a bit of a meme to the outside world. Like I think it was more of a theoretical thing, but there's a lot of recent events that I was giving the example that I've heard like in podcasts and other websites that are completely not crypto related, people talking about decentralization. And I think has to do with a lot of these events that are sort of happening at the same time. Like, the example of GameStop that sort of shows that there's a lot of information asymmetry and privilege asymmetry in terms of retail investors and institutional investors. Whatever you think about that scenario, there's clearly some people institutional investors have privileges that the retail investors don't. There's a lot of talk about demonetization, creators on various platforms getting demonetized and deplatformed. And also this general feeling during Corona about small businesses kind of, I mean, this isn't related to blockchain, but I think it's part of this sentiment about people talking more about decentralization, like a lot of small businesses going out of business. The only people making money are large corporations. So from many different angles, I've been hearing talk about decentralization from non-crypto people. So yeah, so a lot of recent events I think are adding to our narrative.
Sandy, do you want to add some thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so we are like primarily talking about emerging markets in this increasingly digital world, and like what I would like to say is that not only immediate emerging market, but then in emerging markets I think it's even more is that institutional trust is at an all-time low, right? So everybody like nobody really trusts any institutions. I think these days, like it's like, I don't know whether it's fashion or something, but everybody bashes every other institution. So so I mean, emerging markets are also not, I think it's more in the, I mean, it's reverse. Like it's in the first world, it's like to the extreme already, especially in US and all. But in even in emerging markets, it's the same situation that people are kind of slowly, people don't want to trust the governments. So naturally, the the demand for alternative solutions is like, there is already a latent demand, although people don't realize that. Many of the like people who are not exposed to crypto that well, they don't realize that demand. Like, to be honest, like if you go into a like a conference or a public speaking place, I mean, and you are speaking about crypto and all that, people who are not into crypto, they would not understand because they're so blinded by it. But then those who know, and then once you know about it, then it's like hard to go back. So like I would talk about something about India. Like, for example, in India we have around now 7 million holders of crypto, as if my data is correct from the exchanges and all. So, and then slowly and steadily with this whole what happened with Bitcoin rally and all that, this bull markets and all that, like more and more people are getting exposed, and everybody is like trying to understand what exactly is this. And governments definitely want to ban such like kind of autonomous or sovereign digital assets. But then many of you guys would know that the judiciary in India actually said that there is no base on why you want to ban it. So either you create a law, which actually is the function of the legislature, so either you create a law, or you can't ban it, because it's like in the fundamental rights of human beings. So those things, those narratives are emerging over here. And one other thing, like that, like one other very important thing that it enables is that it enables entrepreneurs from these these emerging markets to cater to the global audiences. Like, I already see a lot of like entrepreneurs from India who have made it big on the global stage in the crypto space. And then the bigger entrepreneurial elite is just joining in, and it's like so heartwarming to see in the last 6 months in this particular this thing, that there are a lot of teams coming out of, let's say, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Pakistan and all that. Like, there are some good teams, although like people might not be residents of theirs, but like at least those nationalities are being represented. So I think in this whole digital world, especially with the decentralized in the blockchain space being introduced in that, I think it is opening up a lot of opportunities for the entrepreneurs in these countries, which were not there for them before.
We're really moving to a flatter world where everyone can have more opportunity. Damon, did you have more thoughts on this, or should we move on to something else?
I mean, I would just say that I do agree with the decentralization aspect, like what Sasha said. So basically, decentralization is not just blockchain, which is a great tool to decentralize things, but we see actually in general that, I think, especially with GameStop, I think we are starting to realize the power of the mass, like how much power actually a lot of people can have together. And even if it's just, okay, let's all go to this exchange and start buying, it's already probably something that can outweigh even VCs and hedge funds and large money pools we have, which is super interesting to see. Then on the other hand, we see the crypto markets and its liquidity. I mean, it's stunningly impressive. I mean, if you go to the old stock market, the liquidity is almost looking like a joke compared to anything we have. Even if you look at the trading volume of Amazon, which is the biggest stock, it's like nothing compared to the crypto markets. There's such a fluidity, it's such a organic and flow there, which is just impressive. But I think in this, we have the thing is, I think we're in this merge of like a lot of new economies and a lot of new ways of how people will interact and what will be valuable and how we treat even value and what we treat as money or what we treat as valuable. I think the next few years will be very, very exciting in that direction. Because we have lived too long in this idea of, okay, money is what the government prints on paper, and it's a number on a paper, and they say it's valuable, and everybody accepts it, and this is the only way it goes. Yeah. I think we are starting to understand that, okay, it becomes completely fluid and completely rethinkable for the first time in history ever, I guess. So that's very exciting.
Yeah. So crypto monies is one of the important things that I want to talk about. I live in the United States, and we have a really strong currency. We have the reserve currency of the world, and it works pretty well. But there's a lot of countries in the world that the money doesn't work well. And I'm curious to see what happens when these monies start to be used in daily transactions by the people. And curious, what do you think it's going to take for these crypto monies to start being used for regular purchases by normal people?
I mean, I think what we have to understand is that it's not about money. It's not that we have to create a better money or different money or money we can transfer, around the globe. I think we will start to understand that what is even valuable and why do we use money? So money itself is just a medium of exchange. But if we have other ways of doing the same, for example, maybe we start to, interact or trade with our reputation on some level, right? Maybe it's not even a money in that sense. Maybe, and we have the ability now to have all kind of type of tokens that may be reputation based, that may be community owned, that may be something that's part of a movement or whatever. And I can start using that as actually money because somebody else is willing to accept it, or there's some exchange system in the middle that somehow translates it to something that the other side wants. Maybe the other side wants actually money, like old money, or maybe the other side wants Bitcoin, or the other side wants their own community tokens, which they value more than the other side. We start to be able to exchange this more fluidly. There's this interesting thing I'm from Germany, and in the middle of Germany, there was like a lot of dukedoms, a lot of very small states. And every time you moved just a few miles, you had to constantly exchange the coins because every duke, printed their own little coin with their own face on it because they all felt it was cooler to have their own coin. And we are in the same world, right? Like this in the crypto space, with the big difference, we can automate the flow. We can completely auto-translate everything from this one side to the other, and it can be 5 in the middle if you want to. And we see this with money, Lego, and DeFi happening right now. That's the big difference to the past, even though it, from the outside, it looks almost the same. Like, oh, why do we want to have now a lot of currencies? And why do we want to have a lot of stuff? Isn't it more complicated? Doesn't it make everything more messy? But I think we are starting to realize that it completely translates what is money in the first place and what we take as valuable.
Sasha, you want to jump in?
I think your original question is what will it take the general public to adopt crypto?
Yeah.
Something along those lines? Okay. Well, I think it's a big general question, but I think it's ultimately down to incentives. And this is a bit tangential, but one thing I really love, one of the many things I love about crypto and blockchain is that it makes incentives explicit. I mean, what makes blockchain protocols different, arguably, is that incentives are like baked into the protocol. So it's not just technology. There's game theory and assumptions about behavior that's baked into these protocols. So it makes discussing incentives. It makes we discuss incentives very explicitly. So I think it's ultimately down to incentives. For example, like I showed my dad recently that I keep some of my stable coins in savings accounts that make like something like 4 or 5%. Or when, for example, when people see, maybe not us in the Western world, but when other people see their the value of their money completely obliterated due to inflation, and or their bank accounts frozen. Like when there's actually these events, I think it unfortunately has to come down to people understanding that crypto is better, and that really comes down to incentives. So I don't know if I explained that well, but I think people really have to be incentivized, and I think the incentives are there, but maybe just the knowledge. Like I don't think people are aware that what kind of savings rates you can make by depositing in these various DeFi protocols. So I think once the information is out there, I think the incentives will move people to these platforms. But maybe I'm a bit too optimistic.
I mean, I do have to argue also that the more people are, and the more liquidity comes into this DeFi protocols, the more the margin has to go down, because it's obviously not like being able to print that money out of thin air forever. It's right now just like something that fills up, and then it
I think it's hard for us that have strong monies to imagine what it's like to have a really weak money. I've got some friends over in Iran, and for their entire lifetime, inflation's been about 20-25% a year. And that's just like baking the cake, and everyone expects it. It's not even notable that that's the inflation rate. And it's not easy to get dollars there, but it's pretty easy to get DAI over there, right? There's nothing that prevents that. So
I just want to make a quick comment. To Fabian, like I do understand that some of these yield rates now are completely unsustainable, but the fact that so many DeFi protocols, when you think of the best implementations, they remove so much friction that it's not. I don't think it's. I think it's reasonable to think that these interest rates will be higher than kind of institutional interest rates, just because so much.
Oh, that's for sure. Absolutely, I agree. I mean, and it's great. It's great. This is. I think so. How I see this going forward is because I have been part of Ethereum in the beginning, and I have created the token standard that makes a lot of this DeFi possible. But I think we are thinking in blockchain far too much in tokens, and number one, and far too much in like monetary values. And DeFi is great because we are now inventing, we're figuring out, okay, you can combine more than one smart contract together. I mean, everybody who's been in the Ethereum Foundation early on, we already figured it out the first few months, but I mean, at least now it happens on a large scale. We understand, okay, that is more complex and you can do really great things. But I think it will all start to move more towards the social level. And one thing, what we are doing with Luxo is, and what is also my work on the standards that I'm proposing within this ecosystem, which also work on Ethereum, by the way, just not for the gas costs, but they could work on Ethereum.
Somebody's going to fix that for us.
Yeah, it could work. It's just like it's very expensive. But the point is, we will start to see more social experiences and things that have to do with less money related, less money focused blockchain directions, but things that could be interesting to the ordinary person. And I think one of the essential pieces that we are missing in the blockchain space right now is identity, is an ability to have a profile that's sitting on a blockchain that can be your public profile or can be many profiles that you can have. But some of them you can actually gain a reputation on with the things you have, with the things you own, with the things you do, with the things you issue. And that's fundamentally missing. And that's, for example, one standard I proposed, and it's something we can really nicely push on Luxo because we started network from scratch. We have a lot of like resources available, and we can make a lot of these standards that we have on Ethereum, adopt them better to make them compatible. Because you want to have a profile that can also receive all kind of things and act on these things, and you want to have a different type of NFTs that can do more than just being a address, owning an ID, and then there's some JSON file linked to it. What we have right now. So things can go a lot more complex, and out of this comes experiences that feel like social media, that will feel like Instagram, they can feel like Twitter, they can feel like a completely new economies like digital fashion and things like this that will be emerging. That they will be just super exciting to normal people, and that will be what I see these new digital economies that emerge. Where the money will be always a piece of it, and yes, you can program it in, and yes, you can use DeFi protocols to gain more and stake and give and distribute and whatnot, but it will be essentially usable by and interesting to normal people. which currently blockchain sadly not. It's
yeah.
extremely nerdy.
Most people, billions of people in the world are not going to, be DeFi degens. That's not what it's going to look like. Your idea of, this sort of digital identity, digital reputation, I think is really interesting, and one of the questions I wanted to sort of explore. So, in this new, so we've got this new flatter world, and you can prove your chops, prove your experience, prove your credentials through the system. I think that really lends itself well to a flatter world. A developer over in India, can have just as impressive set of reputational stuff in their wallet to prove out as anywhere else, and I think that will be incredible in how it opens up doors. Sandeep, do you want to talk about how sort of on-chain reputations could spice things up for us?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think it's a very on-chain ID or a decentralized sovereign ID has been a very important topic right from the very early days, and I think now you have a lot of solutions which seem to be there, but then they have not broken out that big. Like I know of Bright ID, for example. There was some time that they were there was a lot of people were exploring it. So definitely identity is having a sovereign identity is a great thing. And overall also as Fabian brought this thing, right now a lot of focus is around the tokens and DeFi and money and these things, but then there are a lot of other kind of new markets that are being created, new for example, NFT itself is many people say that it is going to be even bigger than these fungible token economies. And we because we offer a scalable kind of layer 2 or a side chain and side chain environment on top of Ethereum, so we keep getting a lot of inbound requests for scalability and technical help and things. Like some people are trying to sort of, let's say, put expensive wines on NFT, right? So some people are trying to do personal tokens. Like I think Alex Masmich, he has raised from very top tier funds for Try Showtime, so they are trying to do personal tokens. That is also a very interesting thing. Your social capital. So we are talking about identity, then your social capital described in the form of tokens. So that is also, those are very interesting things. So I mean, yeah, there are the number of kind of use cases that these, especially the decentralized these platforms offer are really great, and then we are just scratching the surface on them, right? So they're going to be everywhere. Philip, you are on mute. Philip, you are on mute.
Philip, you're muted.
You're on mute.
All right, excellent.
Almost.
Moving slightly away from blockchain, one of the things I wanted to talk about is in this time of Corona, we suddenly learned how to do digital education in a way that we never had before. People have talked about sort of online education for a long time, but the progress that's been made in the last year sort of dwarfs everything else that ever came before it. And I'd love to get your thoughts, and Sasha, maybe we could start with you, about how this is going to impact the world, the fact that now this high quality digital content is going to be available everywhere. You're also muted.
I was going to say, this isn't exactly my area of expertise. Is that the case? Are people... I feel like there's been such good content for so long. I remember watching a couple of math videos. I think you guys probably know the channel, three blue, one brown, three or something. He makes incredible math content, and I remember thinking what his series on linear algebra taught me more than any 2 university courses. So I feel like good content's been around for a while. Maybe people are just have nothing to do at home. I haven't noticed that unless you have data. I haven't really noticed things since Corona actually increasing in terms of digital education. But maybe someone else can speak on it.
But I guess I'm thinking not so much as one-way content. I don't know that it's changed, but the shift to functional two-way online education, I think we've had a step change, and that's going to be impactful because there's a bunch of places that it wasn't easy to find a way to get high-quality education, and I think that just opens up.
Yeah, one
thing
that has happened is, one is whether the good education is available in that digital format. The other thing is the acceptability of that information, right? I mean, previously, if I talk about India, the university or degree from a university and all that was very, very important, right? But now, since and it has been, bubbling up a bit, but this kind of situation, pandemic situation, create that situation is that now everyone is doing that, distant online education. So whether you are from a college or did it over a YouTube course or Coursera and all that, everyone realizes that at the end I have to judge you on your skills, not on your degree or anything like that, right? So that is also a very massive mindset shift in terms of that. We already, I think we are now a 50+ team, and I think we have 2 or 3 dropouts from India. Generally it is very, in India it's not a very big thing. In US it's kind of the cool thing to have, you are a dropout from some top, but here it is just picking up, because now the students realize that I don't need this degree. I can simply learn and do what I want to do, and then I'll still be employed, or I can do something on my own. So
yeah, here, right? People put it in their Twitter bio. They're like, I'm a college dropout. They're proud of it. That's probably not true in most other places in the world.
Yeah.
Sounds like this topic is not really resonating. What, as we think about this from an emerging market standpoint, so there's all these changes that all of us are working hard on with our teams to bring to the world. Different governments around the world are going to react really differently. Curious, what are good ways and bad ways that the governments in emerging markets are going to react to what's coming?
I mean, I can give a little example. Sorry, Sandeep, go ahead.
Sorry, please. Fabian, you go ahead, please, man.
I just want to say that, so I mean, the whole crypto space, and they're still very so the thing is, it really will depend on the end. If what they are doing is if they say, hey, we are doing blockchain, and it does then governments will judge this based on blockchain, and they will think, oh, blockchain, and now we have to see if this token and regulation and securities, blah, blah, blah. But if they say we do use case X, and it uses as a part of the technology, also this technology, it will be differently judged. So it really probably depends on how it's presented, and also for the people who use these kind of new things. If you come blockchain first, you might sound cool, but you will be like, oh, that's complicated, weird, I don't want to touch it. And I think we have to change the understanding of how we approach these things. If you have a cool new car, you're not going to open up the engine and show him the valve underneath, and how shiny it looks and hope he gets excited about sitting in the car. He just wants to sit in the car or drive it, ideally. I think also what we did, for example, we did an ICO just a few days back. I mean, it actually finished a few days ago. And we started out, so we do this out of Germany. So everything we did out of Germany. So we created 2 companies, and we talked to the regulators for 1.5 years. We explained to them, hey, we want to do an ICO, we want to sell this token, and we want to not only sell it in an ICO like the ordinary way, but we do this thing called a reversible ICO that I came up with. That it's more fair. People have 8 months, they buy it over 8 months. Gradually they can give their tokens back and receive their ether back, so they have security. They can decide if the project is shit and if we want to buy Lambos or not. So, and all of this took literally 1.5 years of time to talk to them, and a lot of money and lawyers. And on the end we did it the German way. first asking, then you progress through the whole thing. It worked out. It's just not very efficient. And I guess most startups wouldn't want to go that route, you know. And it does work. I mean, especially in Germany, I think they're open enough. They want to see, they want to be open. When I looked at the US, you know, it's the problem is in the US, it's there's too many agencies who all want to have authority and they all want to be important. So they're all trying to land grab somehow, yeah, this falls under our regulation, this falls under our regulation, so that they all can say, you know, oh, we're important now, we need more money because we're doing this very important work here right now. And that sadly leads in the US, for example, exactly to the opposite environment. It's like completely uninnovation friendly. It's like if you do something with crypto, you're by definition literally out. And that's really, really sad to see. So in this case, you want to go from the use case first. And then you may mention on the end, there's also some blockchain involved as a technology stack. And that might be a way to go in the US. I mean, other countries like Germany, they do see it more open. And it's even though it takes time, you know, they all want to go through the processes, but at least you don't get a no on the end. We actually got a yes on the end, which is great.
Nice. Sandeep, did you have something you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think India is right now, in terms of the bad action, India is right now the most talked after, right? So there is speculation that they're going to come up with a kind of a draconian law with which, like, you know, anything and everything related to crypto would be banned and all that. I don't think that, you know, like India has like almost similar democratic values as US, so it's very hard to do an outright ban or whatever, like in India, although the current government has, like, you know, absolute majority, so they can do if they wanted to, but it's really hard to do that. Previously, like our Reserve Bank of India, basically Federal Bank of India, they tried to do that, and then the courts basically subverted that. Our judiciary basically subverted that decision, that, you know, they don't have enough ground to take that decision. But then, you know, like there is definitely, they're going to make it difficult for the retail to get into. So, but you know, like the reason is that, you know, problem is that with this entire space, as Fabian was saying, and I absolutely agree with it, that the currency use case has been publicized too much. And then, you know, the moment you touch currencies, governments are immediately scared, right? And, you know, that's why what we have done, you know, because we originated from India, that, you know, we absolutely stayed away from cryptocurrency type of things, right? Like we are not building a currency. We are building a platform which can be used to, you know, build programmable smart contract, scales programmable smart contract on Ethereum, right? So so that is also that's a very good way of doing things. If the whole community somehow focuses less on the kind of things and the assets kind of things, and, you know, more focuses on more on the use case side of things, that as Fabian you know, was saying. And then, you know, expect, but, you know, the way this industry is growing, like, you know, in trillion of, like now we are in $1 trillion market cap and all that, that's like, you know, very, very big. And then, you know, expect governments worldwide to kind of put some blockers in between, so that, you know, this doesn't become this rampant till the time they realize that how to use it to their advantage. I think I already see Indian government has deployed so many you know, like these big fours like KPMG, Deloitte of the world, who are running these analytics and chain analysis and all that, so that they can track whatever you hold and where you hold something. So it is going to be stringent, definitely, for some time. But I think now, like whenever, like, you know, they, like the government and then agencies talk to me, like what I tell them generally is that, you know, one thing you guys need to accept, that, you know, the genie is out of the bottle. You have to deal with it, period. Like you can, you know, avoid it, play with it for some time, and then try to block it for some time, but you can't really do anything about it. Like you have, it's better to embrace it. So I think yeah, like first focus on use cases, and then, you know, government having like this is the point I want to make, that government having people who are crypto native people. Like right now, governments are being advised, like especially I'm talking about India, like they are being advised by people from KPMG and all that, like, and then, you know, Deloitte and these big fours who are for blockchain, who understand either Bitcoin, the currency side of thing, or they understand Hyperledger and stuff, right? They don't know that much more in between, right? This whole DeFi, programmable money, and all that. So I think if the industry has more representatives advising to these governments, I think some sanity will come in.
I mean, I also have to say that, like, the thing is, the people I met and have been in touch with a lot of government people over the years from actually a lot of places. So there's a lot of interest. They want to do it right. So it's not that they're like all anti, you know, they want to do it right. They want to understand this technology and see how they can regulate it smartly. But at the same time, current governments are very full of like non-technical people. Mm-hmm. So, and most people who are coding awesome stuff, they're literally not interested in talking to politicians. Why would they? You know, like they have things to do. So it's that dilemma we have kind of a little bit. So we have this people who they don't want to do the wrong thing. They want to do the right thing, but they also fear that maybe there's some uncontrolled sides and they need to somehow protect people. Mm-hmm. And that's what I also told them. And this was the purpose of the reversible ICO also. It's about building systems that are secure by design. We have to create systems that have either the right incentives or that just safe by design. And we cannot enforce it to people. We cannot say, hey, you have to do now a reversible ICO or no ICO, right? We have to show that this is actually a nicer way and make people want to use that version versus the other version. There's no forcing anymore. This whole concept of like a government can like, you know, say what people have to do or not have to do. It's completely archaic. It's outdated. We cannot think like this anymore. It's like a consensus thing. And that should be all the time the case anyway.
I'll get Sasha in here.
I actually had a quick question for Fabian. You mentioned when talking to regulators, they talk about wanting to do it right. Like, do you get a sense of what they mean by that?
So the thing is, they want to protect people, or, you know, whatever they think, or their jurisdiction or whatever their field is like protecting. But at the same time, they also know that they don't fully understand it. I mean, I had so far all the people I met, they were very open, very interested in doing it right. They were just missing the full knowledge. For example, we have one thing in Europe right now. It's called MiCA. It's like a cryptocurrency regulation. And they now want to put tokens, cryptocurrencies under similar regulation as they do with the financial task force, whatever, you know, money laundering, whatever rules exist. The problem is, if they now say anything on blockchain, token, or whatever is like falling under money regulation, that means now every NFT that we ever issue, anything that somebody just comes out and puts it on a blockchain, now somehow has to be money regulated. That means KYC for every little transaction and stuff like this. We already have far more complicated like onboarding processes because of, you know, trying to do it right than even banks. I mean, like our ICO, we had to do a KYC. I mean, a KYC is what you do for a bank, for Christ's sake. You know, like if you open up a bank account. I mean, this is already crazy that we have to have it more complicated than any retail ever. And it's not really okay, you know, to do it that way. And there's obviously a lot of reasons, money laundering, blah, 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 blah. But we have to, the problem is the knowledge is missing, you know, like how much money can even be laundered through an ICO? I don't think any, really, because who wants to speculate his like drug money on an ICO coin? I mean, you obviously have to be then involved with people inside and so on. But I think we have to find systems that give you the convenience, but also satisfy regulatory. And for example, one thing you can do is you can have an address that can be a verified address. If it's smart contract based, if it's based on, for example, the standard I proposed, years 7 to 5, you could have an address that has a claim by a KYC provider that it's checked. And then you could participate in all kinds of ICOs, and you never have to do a KYC again, because that thing can be auto-checked on the ICO, on the smart contract level. We need things like this to create convenience, but also satisfy the regulatory side who wants to have, you know, somewhat control or somewhat like transparency in the systems. But yeah, I mean, it's not like a black or white game. You know, it's not like these guys are good and these guys are bad. They're all trying to do the right thing, but you know, as long as not like a bunch of coders who are super into tech wanting to become politicians, they are kind of like a little bit left on their own.
Right.
So, yeah.
Sasha, did you have thoughts on what governments should do right or are going to do wrong?
Again, this public policy isn't really my area of expertise. I mostly just consult with people that do know this stuff. But I can share.
What should I be? Yeah, what should I be asking?
Oh, no. I'll answer your question. I'm just like, giving a little precursor. But just my personal opinion, I tend to be an optimistic person, but when it comes to regulators, I just don't get the sense that they're out for people's best interest. It's just my personal opinion. So when I think about the future of crypto, the thing that worries me isn't scalability and technology or, getting public adoption. Like, none of that worries me. It's actually just like when we bump heads with regulators, that's the thing that most worries me. And that's just my personal opinion.
But I also think that might be are you based in the US? Maybe that's...
Not right now.
Okay, but
Canada, but I've worked in the US.
Yeah, so I think also that the US stance is just it's a bit of a messed up system because the incentives are aligned wrongly. I think there's too much about land grab, and for example, Japan has one single agency for almost all the things monetary. Germany has I think maybe 2, but the US is 50. So you have 50 different parties who all how to try to be important in whatever new topic comes up and is the next hype. And the SEC obviously does the best job at that. This is, I think it's just the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, but then Sasha, I have a slightly different opinion that I don't think all of them and the governments definitely they want to control the currency. That's how the world has worked till now. And this paradigm is completely new, and I think slowly those kind of things that we feel, the liquid democracy and all that, will come in. But this is how the world has been functioning for last, I think, 200-300 years and all that. So I kind of agree with Fabian that even in India, for example, when they are trying to come up with this law, there is a background to it, right? So I don't know whether you guys have heard about it or not, but then 10-15 years back, people used to say that if India is currently a $2 trillion economy, there is a parallel $2 trillion economy. Like you used to say that at least 100% of that is in the black money, right? So which doesn't comes to the book, right? So people do it via cash transactions and things like that, and that's why when external world sees that demonetization, they are like, oh, crypto, that's why crypto is the best. India demonetized and all that, but there were a lot of reasons behind it why India demonetized. There was billions and billions of dollars people were hoarding in terms of cash. And now this the last few governments in the last 15 years or so have tried to do a lot of kind of bringing in a lot of information technology into it, and bringing those GST kind of systems and all that, everything being online and all that. And then suddenly you introduce crypto and boom, everything goes out of the window, right? Whatever you did in the last 20 years, nothing matters. All your gone again. So they are also it's important to understand the regulators' point of view also, because they are coming from that background. That what happens a country as large as India, you won't even imagine the kind of creative scams people come up with, right? Even with these ICO fundings and all, people are putting funding the ICOs in basically by collateralizing art, some form of art, and then you give them some token, and then they offload the tokens in the market, then give you back your invested money, and then take back their art and all that. So there's so many kinds of scam situations that they have to protect the retail, because right now the people, the chosen few that who are there in the crypto and want to speculate, they are saying that, oh, they are being cut off from this new emerging market and all that. But what happens when the next 100 million people from India join this, and then some big scam which we have already seen, that one Bitcoin and whatnot, GB Bitcoin and all that in India also, and the average retail people loses billions and billions of dollars. So they have to protect that also. So but as I said, that they need to have good people from the industry who understand the whole spectrum, and then advise them, instead of either hyperledger guys or anti-Bitcoinist kind of advising them.
But the interesting thing is all the big fours, the big consulting companies, they all go to people like us to educate themselves. because they literally have no clue what they're talking about. So
but then again, like, Fabian, like you, me, like, we are living this. Like, you have created ERC20, right? Kind of like, which powers the entire DeFi and all that. You and me have lived that life, but they come to us, like, and take their notes, whatever they try to make up, like they try to create a mental model, like a very shallow mental model, and then go and, at times that half knowledge is very problematic also. You must agree that, that half.
I had some funny, interesting things. I mean, I've been at the conference in Geneva. There was a guy from the Gardner Institute. The Gardner Institute is the people who do like the big trends and everything. And literally on his first page, the 5 properties of blockchain, one of them was encryption. And if blockchain doesn't have anything, then it's definitely not encryption. Cryptography and encryption is not exactly the same thing. But this is on the Gardner, slide, and this is what they teach. And then they go to the next guys, and everybody goes, oh, blockchain is encrypted, everything on blockchain is encrypted. And that's a huge mistake to make, like these little details and these little mistakes, they sadly then can go and make a long chain of like.
In India also they keep saying that, since this is anonymous, that's why it can be used for criminal funding. And, we are like, the terrorism problem is like, just like US, we also face a large terrorism problem here in the subcontinent. So, they say that, oh, this is used for terrorist funding. I mean, the moment you say that, everybody is like, no, this is something illegal. Like, I had a hard time convincing my in-laws, like, they thought that, I'm into some sort of like illegal stuff.
It's for terrorism, and it's boiling the oceans. The last couple weeks, I've had 4 different people who, in normal conversations, I like and respect and think they know what they're talking about. They're like, "But Bitcoin's boiling the oceans," and like that's not going to be okay. And I'm okay. All right, where do I start? And so we've been talking about all of these giant things that governments are going to do. In the grand scale, can the nation-state system that we've been living in for the last few hundred years, maybe not even quite that long, survive what's coming? Can it survive the decentralization that's coming? Can it survive the common monies that we can use across the world when they can't just print more fiat money?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very interesting topic. Like, I feel that, these nation-state structures are going to be, under a lot of pressure due to this, these crypto economies, these digital economies where you can have, like, although it's like still like far away, I also don't have an exact model, but at least, the intuition says that we are going into those directions where, like, although you will have these boundaries and all that, like, the physical boundaries that you have. So, you need to have security, and then blockchain, I mean, those are the fundamental building blocks of a nation state, right? Like, you have a governance, you have an army which protects you, like, from physical damage, and then, you are living inside a system where, which secures, like, protects your markets and all that. But then, like, if you remove only the physical protection part of it, apart from that, all these, and that's what I think is the biggest friction between the people in crypto and non-crypto people, is that everything else apart from the physical security that governments provide you seems to be an overkill, right? So, I mean, seems to be like we always like, like we are being taxed, and, like all those kind of government interventions and controls and all that. Like, I think there is a very nice book, I'm forgetting the name, but then, it talks about how the nation states actually is built on these 2-3 pillars. So I feel that, that's one part that I am not able to wrap my head around, that how that physical security that governments provide will be, kind of mitigated in this new kind of paradigm where, let's say, like, what I'm trying to say is that what will happen, which will make governments obsolete. So, like, the market.
Got it. All right. Who's starting Army DAO?
Yeah, maybe Army DAO, or who knows, like, when there is AI, there is kind of a, like, it sounds like really crazy, but then it's like, democratized, kind of army to protect people, right? I mean, which is controlled by an AI, and that AI is controlled by, like a blockchain. Like, it's again like some, kind of fictional thinking, but, like, I've been thinking about it, like,
But I mean,
have these drones. Yeah.
if you really think about this, like globalized world we are living in, I mean, I do think we are completely uniting as a planet, and this whole idea of like armies and nation states and wars. I mean, this is literally, hopefully, a thing of the past. I mean, who in the world thinks about making a war on this planet today anymore? I mean, this is a pretty outdated concept. But I mean, what I would like to add to your idea is I fully agree with the government. In my opinion, governments are a service provider. They should be there to like build roads, fix stuff, you know, and do a few things here that like some basic stuff works. But I do think we can like completely, you know, change the way of how we reach consensus around topics through liquid democracy, through decentralized tooling, and so on. And it shouldn't be a government and their old school paper infrastructure necessary actually to make any of these things happen. I think what we need is you know, governments are good for some basic stuff, you know, and obviously, you know, countries need roads and stuff. But I think we have to change the idea of what a government is for, and ideally we have tools to solve that. Yeah.
I want to add there, like, you know, because you are in Europe and, you know, Germany, which is like largely peaceful for quite some time. But, you know, if you come to that part of the world, like there are people who want to make war, like, you know, it keeps happening. Like our borders, like with multiple, you know, countries. I'm talking about in India only, and I'm not saying who is right, who's wrong, but I'm just saying that those things keep erupting every time. Like, although, like, hopefully, like when people like Elon Musk take the humanity to Mars and all that, then some of these people will realize that this land, you know, is no more scarce, right? So you have like, you know, multiple planets. So don't go, you know, horizontal, go upward, like, you know, capture, let's say, moon of Jupiter, right? And instead of like, you know, fighting with other human beings here, and then just trying to capture some piece of land, maybe then, you know, something like that would happen. Yeah.
So folks, we got about 3 minutes here. I'd love to get some final thoughts from Sasha, and then maybe a final word from everyone, and then we'll wrap it.
I just want to say I agreed with pretty much everything Sandeep said, but I also want to say that you're already seeing this with like big tech companies. Like your identity across the internet is Google or Facebook. They disseminate information. Presidential debates happen on these platforms. Like pretty much everything that Sandeep said, it's pretty much just the government's just going to be a physical thing, if at that. And also even like Google, like they're moving to the physical space with whatever they're doing. Google City, what's it called? Smart cities. So I feel like you're already seeing this with big tech companies, them taking on the role of governments, even if they're not being explicit about doing that.
I hope it's
and not just. Sorry, I just said we need to decentralize it and not just give it to one big entity. That's the. I mean, Google is already. I mean, without Google, the world wouldn't work. I mean, literally. Yeah. I mean, everything runs on Google, everything, and they have done a phenomenal. Common good job at the things they provided. I mean, like maps, you know, all kinds of information we have. But we do need to decentralize more and more of these things, especially when it comes about crucial pieces. And for example, when we talked initially about deplatforming, I mean, you know, in the past we thought, oh yeah, these benevolent big giants, they're nice, they're not intervene, they let you do and post whatever you want. But now we see they start to intervene, not because they wanted to, but because they were asked to, literally. And they were asked to by the media and the government, hey, you have to now do this content policy thing here. And now it's funny to watch even, because when they deplatform certain people, or like even put like quote marks, or have you read the article, or this is questionable statement, now the politicians come back and say, but why you do this here like this and there like that, you know? Because it's a really big problem to police content. And you cannot give it neither to a company or neither to a government.
But you can give it to me. And unfortunately, I have to police this content right now. I really enjoyed this conversation with all three of you. I hope the audience did as well. And it's time for us to say goodbye. So thank you all so much.
Yeah, this was really fun. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Fabian. Nice seeing you again. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.